If you want to visit Great Britain, there are things you should be warned about. And we are starting right now. Hi, my name is Ivan Dreisel, and today with me, Ivan Gromny, aka Ivan the Terrific, former Soviet agent who spent 7 years in London. And Holger, a talking German bear from Teutoburgerwald, an expert in English philosophy from John Locke and David Hume to Roger Scruton and Boris Johnson. 1. Only a handful of British people speak English. If you, as a foreigner, studied English at school, you were taught proper English. In Great Britain, it is spoken only within the territory marked with red. If you dare beyond that area, you might have big problems because people there don't speak English, but for some reason believe they do. That's true. When I was on a task with KGB, I had to live in London. I knew my English was not perfect. But when anybody asked me about it, I would say I was from Scotland. And they believed me. 2. There are between 2 and 4 sunny days per year. Some say that is only a stereotype. My grandfather often flew to England, and he said that in those sunny days the view would be very enjoyable, if it wasn't for those damn Spitfires shooting them down from the skies. But they built a retractable roof on the Wimbledon Centre Court. Do you know what it takes for British people to break a tradition? Do you really believe they would build a roof if the weather was only a nuisance? It is true that it doesn't rain all the time. It rains in short 10-minute bursts every 12 minutes. When there are 10 minutes of uninterrupted sunshine, they start fleeing the streets, and those who for any reason fail to remove themselves from the sunshine drop down and burn. The only reason the foreigners might fail to see that is because the British people are very reserved and it is considered impolite to die screaming. Which brings us to number 3. Everybody is expected to remain calm and well-mannered in any situation. If you happen to find yourself in any sort of trouble while in England, you have to remember the proper way to ask for help. You cannot just shout "help". It would make people around you politely ignore you, because they don't want to make your situation more uncomfortable by noticing your improper behavior. For example, if you caught fire and start burning, you must approach a person you intend to ask for help very calmly, not to project any sense of urgency towards them. When you approach them, not closer than 5 feet, remember that, you just stay there and wait for them to notice you and to look at your general direction. Only then you can address the person saying, "I am terribly sorry to bother you, but it would be extremely nice if you could spare a moment and consider a possibility of giving me a hand for a minute." If that doesn't bother you too much, of course. 4. You can drink only tea and beer. If you are thirsty, you go to a pub and have a pint. You cannot drink outside of a pub because you might get drunk and aggressive, and it is not acceptable outside of that restricted area. While in a pub though, you are expected to start or join a brawl. Once I was attacked because they mistook me for an Irish. After I beat all 6 of them, there was nothing that could convince them that I wasn't. British love of tea dates back to prehistory. After they discovered tea in China in the 17th century, they came to a conclusion that it is much easier to have your culture built around tea when you actually have some of it. When they discovered that the tea would not grow in England, they had to conquer India in order to acquire an adequate place to produce it. Later, they decided they don't need the actual tea plant, when it is much cheaper to proclaim that any beverage made by boiling any leaves would be called tea. 5. British love football. There is a certain note of masochism about British people. They continue to love football regardless of all humiliation it brought them. Before each European Championships and World Cup, the hype is growing among the general public. But subconsciously, they know it will all come to nothing. And they only had to guess who would be to blame this time. We love when the draw gives us England. This is considered a bye to the next round. 6. Most of them are not informed that the British Empire is gone. Everything we said about the British stands true until they leave their soil and go for a vacation abroad. I was once on the Greek island of Corfu, a former English colony, and a tour guide told us that we must not at any circumstances go to a place called Kavos. If we have to, we should go at noon because the English must stay hidden from the sun, drinking to pass time until the evening. And then they go out and pick a fight with anybody because it is considered a failure if you don't get arrested and deported by the Greek police. As the end of the holidays approaches, those who didn't do anything worthy of telling at home enter the panic mode, because it would be a disgrace to go to a former colony and to do nothing fitting a colonial master. Next Thursday we will do the Italians, and if you like this episode, hit the bloody subscribe button. And if you miss the Americans, you can check them out here and here. And I love the Beatles.